Welcome to the It's Time podcast with your host, Professor Dale Feinauer from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business Graduate Programs.
Back to your original question. What kind of culture do you want? I tell this to my own children. When you're looking for a job, don't pick the company. Don't pick the cash. Certainly don't pick the job because it's going to change 10 times. Pick the culture that you want to work in, because everything else is sort of variable. You know, you're going to change jobs 20 times. You're going to have all kinds of chances to make money or not. But if you're in the wrong culture, you have very little chance of success. So whether it's a culture of innovation or a culture of fear or a culture of inspiration, whatever it is, make sure you understand that before you pick a job. And most of us look for the job and the cash, or the job and the title and the cash, the title, whatever. Most of us don't understand what we're really getting into. And I think your question on how you handle failure will probably have a big impact on who stays with your company, because they're going to fail. It's 100% certainty it's going to happen. You better think about it in advance.
The only people that never strike out are the people who never go to bat.
Never even got in the dugout. So as Henry Tyson once said, you'll find out a lot about yourself when you lose your first $10 million. And I did.
What'd you find out?
Well, that sucked.
What else you learned?
I learned that I learned that we were arrogant, and we got sloppy. We had a customer. I hope it's okay to tell this story, but
it's okay by me.
One of my favorite all-time, kind of mentors was the CEO of Great Lakes Cheese. I'm not going to say his name, but he was just he was a great guy. And when I got promoted to president, and he called me to congratulate me, and it was a big customer of ours, tens of millions of dollars. And they were the world's largest, really the U.S. largest processor of cheese. You don't know them because it's all private label. And they had hundreds and hundreds of SKUs, and we were failing dramatically with service. We were missing every order. It was pathetic. And we had the best technology, and we had the best products, and we had by far the most patents. We were the best, material science company in the world. Probably still are. And I think we got a little full of ourselves, and, we'll get it to you as soon as we can get it to you. And our service model kind of went to hell. And Gary called me and he goes, "I'd like you to come down to Cleveland and meet with me, and bring your team if you want, but I want you here tomorrow." Well, I'm probably not coming for a pat on the back. I'm coming to get something, some bit of advice. And we sat down in a big conference room, and big, like 10 people from Great Lakes and 6 or 7 of us from Bemis. And he leans across the table and he goes, "We used to be good friends, our two companies, but you failed me. You failed us just terribly. And we're on the verge of having to replace you as a longtime supplier because we're no longer good friends. So I want you to go home, go back to Wisconsin, and think about what it's going to take to become good friends again." And this is like the French Moss story. I'm just sinking in my chair.
Right.
He had a way of just gutting me without actually even.
Doing it politely. This was better than yelling.
A 6-minute meeting, and I want you to fly back to Wisconsin and think about what it's going to take to be good friends again. Because if you don't get it right, it's probably going to end bad. But we need to be good friends. And he knew how to get to me, and I just sat there and I was just almost stunned. So what did I learn about? Fortunately, we figured it out, but he single-handedly gave us a lesson that we took back, and we changed our whole service model from top to bottom for all of our customers, and moved arrogance to the side, and rethought the question of what does it take to be good friends again? And it was a lesson I learned, this is cheese packaging. How hard could this be? Really hard. And now and then if you listen, you'll get these lessons. All of them kind of hurt. So not necessarily a loss of a customer, but it was a good lesson for, I think we got full of ourselves. Dale, I think we just were full of ourselves. And it took someone to kick us in the head to change that. And we did. And it was a great success story. I believe now it's a customer 10 times the size as it was back then. So I attribute that all to the hard work of the team to figure it out. But the CEO of that company knew how to get to us. Most leaders would have just threatened us with our lives. Here's your new, we're taking $20 million with your business. Here's your new price. Too bad you guys screwed it. He would have threatened us with our lives. This guy knew how to sort of do that in a way to inspire us to succeed instead of threaten to kill us. And he figured out how to do it. He says he sort of, in a polite sort of way, tried to inspire us to be good friends. Those are his exact words, instead of threatening us with our lives. Because if he threatened us, we would have gone in a corner like any caged animal. But he inspired us by convincing us that we had forgotten about what it meant to be good friends. It was an unbelievable lesson. And I know one of the many things that led to the success of that company.
Sounds like throughout your life, failures or struggles have been a great source of growth for you.
Yeah.
What do you attribute to the fact that you could learn from the failures and the struggles, and that they made you better as opposed to crumbling you into ashes?
Well, I mean, what are your options?
Crumbling into ashes.
Right. And I think this goes back to that whole restaurant thing. And it's either we're going to lose the family business, because what do a couple of teenagers know about running a restaurant that serves 2,000 people a week? What do we know? We know nothing. But what's our option? And I think that was right from that point where it's like, that's it. And there's another restaurant story. I don't know if I've ever told this one, but it was Christmas Day in 1977. And my dad had bought this restaurant, and I had actually worked at a Holiday Inn as a kitchen manager in high school. So I had at least 0.1% of experience. So my dad and I were sitting at this new restaurant. It hadn't been opened yet. We were just kitting it all out. And so it's not open, but we're sitting in Christmas Day, sitting in the restaurant in a booth, designing the menu. And, we were good buddies. This was my dad, right? So, whatever he needs, whatever he wants. So it's Christmas Day. We're designing this menu. And I looked up at him. I said, Dad, what if this doesn't work? What if this thing goes down? What's going to happen? And my dad was a very soft-spoken, kind of the opposite personality as me, not a very soft-spoken guy. And he's got his head down. He just looks up and he goes, I, Jim, will not give 1 minute of thought to failure, because that's a minute I'm not spending on how to make this thing work. So that's my answer. And at the time I go, okay, or what? It didn't dawn on me. Many, many, many years later, it was pretty obvious that was a life lesson right there and then, that you got to answer your question. You got two paths. One is not really an option. Failing and crumbling and I think
but a lot of people do punt.
Yeah.
A lot of people do duck.
Well, sure. And for some people, we've all ducked. Of course I have, Dale. But that was just one of those, I kind of forgot about this until you just asked it. Where do you get kind of grounded in all this? And you don't really know where these inflection points, because they're all over the place. But that was one of them. Another one was one of your professors, Bill Zor.
I know
Bill Zor. So I'm a radio TV major, which is not probably the best career choice in 1980. And I'm a radio TV major, and I want to own radio stations. I have no idea why. Okay, that sounded
But
cool.
you got an ambition. You got a goal.
So I started taking accounting classes and business classes because I figure you probably got to figure all that out. And as I got into it, it was obvious. This is 1980, 18% inflation. You remember this. No one else that's watching this podcast probably remembers it, but there were no jobs.
People talk about 4%, 6% is high inflation. It's
No.
No.
My first mortgage was 12%. But anyway, to shorten the story, so I decide I got to get a job. I've got no money. I'm engaged. I better get a job. And the only jobs were for finance and accounting majors in 1980. There were a few jobs out there. So I decided to, radio, TV, accounting, what's the difference? So I got into accounting, and I'm halfway through it. And the cutoff class, if you know this, is intermediate accounting.
Yep.
It's a really hard class. And I'm not doing very well. I got like a C or a B. And if you didn't get a B, you're out. You're sort of, okay, go back to radio TV. And there's nothing wrong with radio TV, but that wasn't my choice. So I go to meet with Bill Zor. He's the accounting professor, and I'm sitting down with him, and I just had a C on the midterm. And I'm going, I just think I'm just not made up for this. I think I should just hang this up. Dr. Zor, he goes, Jim, he shut his door. He goes, I think you can pull a B out of this class. I also think you're the number one student in this class. And I predict when it's all said and done, you'll have 8 job offers. So don't think of it as a B or a C. Think of it as just a step to where you need to be. You've got everything it takes for what those guys in those big 8 firms want. Just keep your eye on the big picture here. You can do it. And it was a life-changing 2.5-minute meeting about what failure looks like, what quitting looks like, and some random professor out of nowhere said, not only are you not at the back of the class, I think you might be number one. And from that day on, it just took off. So I think whether it's my dad at the restaurant, Bill Zor sitting in I can't remember the name of the business school way back then. Clo. Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore, but there's
we gave it to radio, TV, film to let them use it.
Yeah, I'm sure they leveraged it into a massive success. But you have these people you meet in your life that just made this incredible difference. And that's what I'm trying to do now. That's why I do this stuff on Saturdays. That's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I do the commencement speech. That's why I'm trying to do my coaching and advisory work. It's not about making it. It's about trying to make a difference. And I think in the end, your legacy won't be the pile of money. Who cares?
Right.
It'll be the pile of happiness and experiences. And that usually comes down to, did you make a difference? And so there's all these people, French Moss, my dad, Bill Zor, you, that make a difference if you're looking for it.
So one of the keys is to be looking for it.
I think so.
And sort of a two-sided question. What did Bill Zor see in you? Presumably he didn't give that speech to every student.
I invited him to my wedding, and we lost contact. I don't know for sure. I don't know, Dale.
The most inspirational leader, the best leader that you've ever interacted with. Who was the
best leader I've ever interacted with? Wow. Let me answer that a little differently.
Okay.
I have like 3 or 4 attributes, but they're from different leaders.
Okay.
So I haven't thought about this in advance.
It's a mosaic here.
It's a composite. Okay. I talk a lot about, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yes.
If you don't get that right, you pretty much don't have a chance. But if you get that right, it's incredible. So let me tell you a little quick story about that. The guy that pretty much promoted me to every position I had at Bemis was a guy named Henry Tyson, the retired CEO, and took many, many chances on me. I'm the non-chemical engineer that he kept promoting to running all these big businesses, and big, tough, chemmy, tough-minded guy, but with an incredibly big heart. You just didn't see it often, but just a big, tough-minded guy. And you have to be in that role, of course. Fast forward, my mother dies. And a very emotional thing, obviously, in my life. And Henry and a bunch of the officers all came to the funeral. So I'm in the very front row, as the family often is in a funeral, right? And my hands are on the pew. And Henry walks up to do their condolences, right? At church, this is. And he walks by the front pew, and he gets to me, and he just holds my hand. This is Henry Tyson, the toughest SOB I met. And then he's sort of a little emotional, and he walks away. And at that moment, I knew that the guy cared about me. And I always kind of thought that, but it's just one of those gestures. It was a fleeting little 10-second thing, Dale. But I'll never forget, in his retirement speech, which I gave part of it, I mentioned that to our board, who never saw that side of him, but it was always there. So that's one of those little elements of nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And if you can get that right, and not many people saw that, but I saw that in him, and really Jeff Curler too, who was the chairman of the company. They always got that right. And then I mentioned Bill Zor earlier. I wouldn't categorize him as one of the best leaders I ever met because I didn't work with him in that format. But he saw something, and he did something that pretty much changed the trajectory of my life. So I have to kind of look at the guy. He showed me what it looked like to care about someone when he didn't need to. He didn't need to do that, and he did.
Right.
And one of the other guys is a guy named Bob Hyland. And Bob is I think he's in the top 10 winningest high school coaches in the country, by far, in Wisconsin. He's the high school football coach at St. Mary Springs in Fond du Lac. And Bob's been there for something like, I'm going to get this wrong, probably something like 50 years.
Wow.
Dozens of state championships. I mean, he's the guy, right? And I was one of the, sort of captains of the team when I was a junior in high school. And I was messing up at practice terribly. And Bob was a young guy then, in his 20s, and a crazy coach. This is in the day where they could beat you up. And I missed a play and missed something else, and he yelled at me and told me to go take a shower, and I don't want you on the field anymore. And I got mad, and I took my helmet off and I whipped it at him. And I turned around and started walking away. We had been to 3 straight state championships. This was a real football team. And I start walking away, and all of a sudden I hear all the team screaming. And I look over my shoulder, and here comes 265-pound All-American guard from North Dakota State, Bob Hyland, at me at 20 miles an hour and creamed me. Knocked me 5 feet through the air, knocked me down, and then I uttered a bunch more swear words, and I quit. And I walked off the field and quit. And I was so mad at him. And I went home, told my dad this whole story. And my dad, you've already heard a few stories, just listening. He goes, Jim, get in the car right now and go back there and you apologize to him. I go, the hell I'm going to apologize. He just beat the hell out of me in front of my whole team. And he's get in the car and go back there right now. I'm not, he goes, do it right now or you're going to regret this for the rest of your life. So I get in the car and I drive back to high school, which is up sort of about 5 miles up in sort of the ledge of Fond du Lac. And I walk in his office. He called me Ransom because he never could pronounce my name right. He goes, Ransom, what do you want? I go, I came back to apologize because I knew you'd be back. I go, Coach, why did you do that? He goes, because I knew you could take it and you needed it and you needed your head corrected and you needed to just have someone lay you out and bring you down to earth. And I thought that was about the right time to do it. And we have since talked many times over the years. And one time I asked him, if you're going to take me apart, I'm supposed to be one of the team leaders. Don't you want to do that privately and not in front of the people that are supposed to follow me? He goes, yeah, I probably should have. But I thought the best thing to do was to just nail you right in the football. So, there's another example where his style didn't work with me at all. It never did for all the years we were together. But I learned from that, you're going to have lots of different people lead you. And you have to understand what they're trying to do. Bill Zor is different than my dad, who's different than Bob Hyland, who's different from Henry Tyson. They're all different. So you ask the question, who's the best one of them all? I don't know. They all brought something different to the table. And I could come up with 100 more of them. But I don't know that I've ever yet met the best, Dale. I don't think they exist. I haven't met who's the best. And I'm not trying to
ultimate leader.
I just don't know if that person is really out there.
Right.
I think probably the best pure leader I've ever worked with is a guy that's going to be on this podcast, and that's a guy named Brian Brandt. And Brian worked with me at Banner Packaging, a division of Bemis, and he worked with me at Bemis North America, and then he since moved on to a big officer position at Oshkosh Corp. But I learned as much from that guy, or more than he ever learned from me. And so for those of you watching or listening to this podcast, Brian will be on this at some point. Listen to him. He's a wise guy. And fundamentally, he'd probably be the best. And I'll let that interview, you'll come to your own judgment, Dale, but I'll let that interview speak for itself versus me trying to describe it.
The University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Master of Business Administration program is powerfully positioned to help you advance your career. Join a strong network of more than 3,700 UWO MBA alumni in the Fox Valley and beyond, and take pride in earning a quality business degree from an AACSB accredited institution. Courses are led by award-winning faculty and industry experts, helping you develop personally and professionally during your time here. Take the first step toward an MBA by visiting uwo.sh/MBA to see all that UW Oshkosh has to offer. That's uwo.sh/MBA. Apply today.
And not to stress the point too much, but I think it's fascinating when you noted that humility is one of the important characteristics in a leader, that you're identifying someone who you were a leader for and noting that you learned more from them than they learned from you.
I did.
Speaks to humility.
It's just honesty, and it's true. And I think there's plenty of other examples of that as well, including some of the students that I've had a chance to work with over the last 5 years. These are this is the 1% of the 1%. You're 30, 40 years old, and you're going to fork out all this money, and you're going to spend, 55 straight Saturdays grinding out an EMBA. There are very few people that will put themselves or their family through that. So you have some incredible ambition, and some really important goals you want to accomplish. So I have found, as we put students through their leadership journey, one of the things we do in our strategy class is talk a lot about leadership. But in our leadership class, we actually put the students through a bit of an exercise of, what are your gaps? Here's where you are, and here's where you want to be. Here's what great looks like, and here's where you are today. I don't know if this is in most MBA programs, but it's in ours because we put it there. But when these students start talking about their journey from where they are and where they want to go, it's quite emotional, as you know, Dale.
Yes.
And I have learned so much more about leadership watching these 30-somethings go through their personal journey. Because this is one of the few times anyone's ever in their life been forced to stand up in front of all their peers and talk about what they want to do and how they're going to do it and what the gaps they have as leaders. Because usually it turns into a life story more than a leadership story. So it's another place, I don't know, to do with humility, but it's an incredible source of things I've learned about leadership, is watching whatever it's been now, 100 students go through that little journey and watch what they talk about and listen to the conviction to what they want to change and watch some of them cry and some of them laugh, but all of them,
Some of them both.
all of them get very emotional when you talk about what your leadership journey needs to look like. And it's never over. Mine's not over. Yours isn't over.
No, absolutely not.
We wouldn't be sitting here doing this if it was.
Exactly.
So, it's a great question. I don't know that I've ever had anyone ask me, who's your all-time, leader. I'm going to pick somebody right now. It's going to be Brian. And the rest of it is just the composite that's still being put together. It's not done.
I'll give you another chance for humility. What would you do different? If you were going to go back and you were going to relive some of your leadership, what would you do different than you've done before?
Oh my God. How long do you want this podcast to last? What would I do different? Well, it's interesting, as in retirement, you have a chance to reflect a little bit, right? Even though I'm not retired as might classically define it. But I think the further away you get from the action, the more you become kind of aware. And I'd say there's a couple things I wish I would have done a better job of. When you're in the game, in the fight, in the battle, you tend to work in the business 24/7. It never leaves unless you're sleeping and you're probably dreaming about it. So you spend all your time working in the business. And I think as I reflect back on it, I think I wished I would have spent more time on the business.
And talk about that distinction.
Well, when you're in it, I've been on school boards and all kinds of different stuff. Data care board, you're focused on problem solving. You're focused on the issue of the day, the issue of the week, the issue of the moment. It's all about, we're here and we need to get to here. So leadership is just, getting the clarity and alignment and the resources together to get from here to here and then to here. And you're in the foxhole working on the business, or in the business rather. And I think it would be healthy to have a working day vacation every week to step back from it all. Step, not just 5,000 feet, 50,000, 100,000 feet away from it. And just sit back and what if the business, what if the people, what if the organization, what are some of the other things we could be doing? And of course I did. But I think I could have done more of it. Now that I reflect back on, I probably was more of a foxholer than I was a 50,000 foot guy. And I wished I had to balance that better. I think it worked fine, but if I could do it over, I think I'd do more of that. The other thing that's probably more relevant is, and we're all guilty of it, is we all chase the problems far, far more than the opportunity. And if you look at success, it largely comes from leveraging opportunities, not fixing problems. But what do? With the employee that's red, we try to fix. The customer that is got the lowest margin, we try to get that one improved. The plant that has the lowest quality rate, we try to work. We put all of our time and energy generally on the problems, particularly people. Think about your life, Dale.
Yep.
10 hours of people problems for every 1 hour supporting the one faculty member that probably could succeed you. We spent our time, just everyone does it, and I was guilty of it, working on the problems. When in reality, and maybe it's ego, I thought I could fix them. When in most of the time, you can. And I think most successful entities, families, companies, churches, schools, they have found a way to leverage the opportunity at a pace far greater than working on the problem. And I think we obviously have someone coming to fix the problem right now. If you've picked up the sirens on it. on the audio here, but I think if I wished I had spent more time, supporting particularly the people that I think really were going to make it happen long term versus fixing the problems because they were urgent. It's way easier to see that the further you get away from it. So spend your time, if I could give some advice, balance your time working on the business versus in it. You got to do both. And if you have an opportunity to work on a problem today or work on an opportunity, pick the opportunity. Even though the problem is screaming, it's probably on fire, there's smoke coming out of the chimney, someone's going to get mad. If you fix the problem and at the end of the week, it will not have any material effect on the business, then it didn't matter. So the more you think about it, I got to fix this, this, and this. But if I don't fix it, nothing will happen anyway. If I do fix it, there'll be no meaningful change. So work on the opportunity because it's going to at least have a chance to be leverageable. Fixing a problem that isn't going to even be noticeably different if you fix it, and we all get caught up in it.
Right.
And a really hard thing for leaders to do.
Put it in perspective,
especially newer leaders. Yeah. Where that's just more of an experience thing. But man, how many hours we have all burned working on employees that are in the red box. You're never going to change them anyway. That's how they got there. Just move on.
Yes.
So
I'm with you.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the other things I wished I had, done more of is, when life moves fast and you don't always see what people are capable of because, you just get these glimpses and then you're on to the next thing. And I think now and then slowing down a little and looking a little bit behind the curtain at what people are possible and what they can do. And I have a great story. One of my all-time favorites was girls softball. I coached the 6th and 7th grade girls softball team, which my daughter was on. And my other daughter helped coach, and one of my neighbors. And we were not very serious. We were halfway decent. But we spent all this time coaching our sons. It was time to coach the girls. So we volunteered to coach, and I was the manager of the girls softball team. And, we had okay team, but we had this one particular young lady. Her name is Jessica. And she was that one kid, can't hit, can't catch, got to put her in left field as far away as she can get or in right and bat her last every single week. Coach, can I pitch? No, Jessica, you cannot pitch. You cannot play second base, go to right field and go all the way to the fence and turn around. Can I lead off, coach? No, Jessica, you cannot. Time goes on, right? In the middle of the season, Jessica runs to second base and doesn't slide. And if you don't slide in girls softball, you're out. So I yell at her, Jessica, I told you got to slide. You didn't slide. Coach, I'm very sorry. She goes home, practices sliding in her backyard, and shows up at practice the next day, and she's got 30 stitches in her knee. Practicing sliding in her backyard, she caught her knee on some stones and ripped her knee to pieces. And I'm going, oh my God, I wanted you to slide, but I didn't want you to get hurt. And so I feel terrible. And so now she's the assistant coach for the next 3 weeks. To shorten the story, we get to the playoffs. She's finally better. And we're in 3rd place. We're playing for the 3rd place game. And the girls and I meet. We go, we can play to win this game today, or we can just have fun. The other team was going to kill us either way. And the girls go, let's just have fun today, coach. And we all want to change positions. So let's all change positions. So they're all changing positions. Jessica goes, hey, coach, can I pitch? No, Jessica, you go to right field and you're going to bat last because that's the best thing for you. She goes out there, inning number 2. Coach, can I pitch? Absolutely not, Jessica. You go out to right field and you're going to continue to bat last. Now it's like in the 5th inning, we're down like 15-1, and the girls are, hey, coach, let her pitch. No way. This girl cannot pitch. She's too uncoordinated. No way. She cut herself apart just sliding in a second. The other coach, my buddy Jim Nelson, goes, let her pitch. So, all right, Jessica, you're pitching the 5th inning. And her parents are there, and the stands, are full of parents. And she, swear to God, this is a true story. She goes in and throws 9 70-mile-an-hour strikes out the side. You couldn't even see the ball. It was pitched so well. And I'm just in awe that she did this. The girls carry her off the field. Her parents are bawling. Half the places, nobody saw this coming. She ended up pitching in college, actually. And it's just a true story about me just being stubborn and not looking at what's possible. And to this day, of all the stories I tell about people and what I missed and what I could have done, watching her parents' face when that kid got carried off the field, I'll take it with me the rest of my life, Dale. So everybody's got to have lessons. And one of mine was Jessica, the softball story, and watching her pitch. And she ended up pitching in high school and she ended up pitching in college. I don't know what happened to her. I lost contact, but you know what? It was there the whole time, but I never slowed down to look.
Right.
I never slowed down to look. And we talk about this story with my daughters because they were there to witness this. And so they learned something too from this story.
Right.
So what would I do different? There's a lot of things. I think I got a lot of things right, but all of them are kind of people related, as you can tell.
You'd let Jessica pitch.
I let her pitch. It took a little doing, but I let her pitch. And to this day, I've never seen a grade school kid pitch like that. She was pretty tall, like 5'8", 5'9".
Right.
Anyway, sometimes it's not obvious. People are capable of incredible things if you look, and that was one.
What's the most fun? What's the best part of being a leader?
That's the easiest question you've asked me today. When you see people succeed and do things they didn't think they could do, it's euphoric. You see somebody that doesn't think they can do it, and you've convinced them to do it, or you put somebody in a role that they weren't ready for, they exceed, they perform at a level that even they didn't think was possible. When you see people do stuff that they didn't think they could do, that's fun. You took a risk usually, but just watching people exceed what they thought was possible is just the most incredibly powerful thing. So at some point in at least in my career, when it really became the most fun was when I quit worrying about my own career. Somewhere in my 40s, I think, maybe late 40s, where I don't care if I ever get promoted again. When I quit caring about it, Dale, it just went like this.
It was so much more fun.
I can't explain it, but I quit worrying about positioning myself for the next whatever, getting in, in the right position to get promoted to this or that or whatever. You know what? Just take care, lead from the back, take care of the truth, and they'll make it all happen. You don't have to do anything. And suddenly it just goes like this. And then you get the credit.
Yes.
You get the credit because you were in the box, right? You were the quarterback. You get the blame, but I think it's so empowering and so euphoric. And this is what I miss. I do miss that element of working, whether it was Monashik work or Bemis or whatever. It's hard to get the leadership buzz doing anything but that. You can get it, you get it from this, you can get it from other places, but the buzz you get from getting people to realize some level of success or happiness that they got to because you were in their life, that's
pretty cool.
Pretty difficult to monetize that.
Yep.
And it's way more fun than making money.
Yep.
Like by 100 to 1.
Yep.
And so now, you and I are at we're at least on the back 9 of our careers, Dale.
Yes.
Some might say the 19th hole.
We're not quite to extra innings yet. My 91-year-old mother is in extra innings.
So now you look for different ways to make a difference. You
Yes.
look for different ways to, sort of coach and lead. And some of that's day to day, some of that's how do you treat the people in your life? Some of it's the lady at the bakery. Are you going to be kind to her? Or are you just mad because what you want isn't there and you're in line behind 2 people? Leadership takes a lot of different forms. And it's not always just standing up in front of 10,000 people and commanding some sort of performance. Sometimes it's one-on-one. Sometimes it's your family. Sometimes it's, doing this. But you never really know where it is. So if you keep looking for it, there's always a place to continue to lead, I think. It's sort of a lifelong hobby.
Sure.
For me anyway. I know it is for you.
It is.
So.
Cool. Describe yourself in 5 words.
Why don't you let me prep for some of these questions?
Okay, Jim, why don't you think about
5 words. Okay. I have never been asked this one. I do think I'm a humble guy. I do care. I think I've always been pretty decisive. And whether it's egotistical or not, extremely confident. And I mean, it's something to do. I don't know if I have one word, but I cherish. I try never to have regrets with my family, with my job, with my wife, who I've been with since we were 16. I don't take for granted anything. I really, and you know this because you and I are the same age. Is you have to just be careful not to have regrets. So I don't know if that answered the question. I hadn't really thought about it.
No right answer.
But those are some of the top of mind.
There you go. Last piece of advice that you would give to people that are thinking of becoming a leader in an organization. What piece of advice would you give them?
I think maybe there's 2. They're both have nothing to do with delivering profits, because that's an output of leadership, not an input. But I would say that, the only thing that kind of brings happiness and peace to your life is the quality of your relationship, starting with yourself. And if you can't get that simple equation right, you're probably never going to be that great at leading, because you'll eventually learn, not at 20, but by the time you're our age, the quality of your relationships is the only thing that will really bring peace and happiness. And it's an incredible attribute of leadership, by the way. And the second thing, and I said it earlier, whichever version of this story you want to listen to, it's again, we always want to be at the top of the mountain so everybody can see us, and that's just not the case. What is most important is, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And if you get that right, you can get an organization to do almost anything. And so if I would give any advice, it'd be, the quality of your relationships and how you lead, how you think about it, will define you. Ultimately, the results you deliver won't, good or bad. It won't be enough, because it won't be enough for you.
Right.
So, you got to do all of the above. But if I had to pick 2, again, the output measures of leadership are results. The input measures are what you should spend your time on, because you're probably not going to be the one delivering the output anyway.
Right.
But you'll be grinding on it. And you'll be working on it. But, lead from the back. However, whatever version of this resonates with you, Dale. But when I finally got that through my head, that nobody cares how much you know. Nobody does. Nobody. We have to act that way because we're smart. We're the leader. We're the smart guy. We have all the answers. No, you don't. No, you don't. And eventually, you get that through your head at some point, or you get fired. One of the 2. But once you figure a few of these unlocks out, it can be pretty powerful, and it can be addictive. It's fun.
It is addictive.
Leading is fun. Not everybody likes doing it. Some people, it's not for everybody.
Nope. Not for most people.
But for those that are interested in it and those that are passionate about it and those that want to study it, the other beauty of it is there's no finish line to it. Well, I finally got that done. No, you don't. Well, I got that figured out. No, you don't. And so one of the beauties of this whole topic is, as you'll tell the stories through this podcast, there's no finish line. It's just the journey.
We're all a work in progress.
Yeah. And you can embrace that journey, or you can kind of sit in the corner and be a recipient of it. Manage your pile of experiences and happiness. You can do that yourself. But some people don't kind of get that stuff right. In some days, nobody does. But I just find it sort of an interesting study of people to see what they think is important. And I go back to relationships will drive your happiness, and having the backs of your teammates will drive your success. And if you get those things right, you got a pretty good chance of sitting here doing this one of these days, if that's something that's important to you.
So you drive the relationships because it's the right thing to do, and that's what's going to make you feel good in the long run. And by the way, it'll actually be the most profitable thing to do anyway.
Undoubtedly. 1 + 1 = 3 if you know what the variables are. And if you focus on getting people to do more than they think they can do, to have their backs sincerely, to inspire success instead of create fear to perform, I think it's the only way going forward in an environment that's changing at the pace it is. And the other thing is, this is a global environment. When I got into the world of business, it wasn't global. It was U.S. Oh, there was Europe, but it wasn't a global economy or a global world or a global communication. It was very narrowly defined as the U.S. Those days are long, long, long.
How is management leadership different today than it was is business, I should say, how's business different today than it was when you started in business?
Well, first off, your window of performance, if it was a foot wide, now it's an inch.
Right.
You have no wiggle room because of technology, information, statistics, diagnostics. So when you first get into the business world, when you and I did, your room for error was pretty wide. Now it's, if it was a bowling alley, now it's one lane, one tiny,
right,
3-inch square. So one thing is, the world's narrow because of the information we have. It's operating at a pace 100 times faster than when I got into it. So it's narrow version of what the risks are and the ability to perform. It's global in terms of competitors you didn't even know were there are now there. Competitors that didn't exist. You own a cab company in New York, and next thing you know, Lyft and Uber. You own, car company like, General Motors, and next thing you know, Tesla's there worth 4 times more you are, and they didn't even exist 10 years ago. So companies are emerging that didn't exist. The fairway has gotten narrow. The speed of change is just rapidly different, and it's all tied together in a global environment. Now we're dealing with this on a supply chain basis right now, and the leaders of the future are going to have to adapt to a 360-degree world. Versus when I got into it, it was pretty much, here you are, there you need to be, here's your customer, there's your vendor. Those days are over. And so the leaders of the future have to be far more flexible and adaptive to change. And that's pretty obvious. So the days of leading like this, Dale, and pounding performance out of an organization, they're not going to work for you. It's over. It won't resonate. So I think the future leadership models are going to be built very differently.
Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future, given the young people you work with, given the people you've led, given the students you see?
But one of the other beautiful life lessons he taught me is stress is, and to your point on am I optimistic, it only comes from when we don't know what to do. We know what to do. No, it's cumbersome. COVID is cumbersome. That's a pretty big challenge.
Yep.
But we do have a way through this. supply chain issues, interest rates. I think some of the cultural issues are a little more challenging, but there's ways through all this. So if we all just sit in a corner and get stressed out, then I'm not very optimistic. When you start breaking all this stuff down into what's the problem we're solving for? How do we get aligned? And then let's go execute. But if we jump to step 3 before we do 1 and 2, save that for another podcast, then we're screwed. But as long as what are we solving for? Get clarity. We get alignment in decision-making, people, dollars,
resources,
hearts, minds, souls, and then we execute, we got a chance. And if we do that, I'm very optimistic. If we don't do that, we just jump to step 3, then it gets a little bit chaotic.
So you're optimistic?
Absolutely.
Got a shot. Your grandson can have a wonderful world to live in.
I sure hope so. I hope the polar ice caps don't melt. I hope this and I hope that. I think at our stage, I live a little more in the present, Dale, at 60 than I did when I was 40. And I think, just make every day a magnificent experience, not get up on Monday and hoping it's Friday. And if you do that, it is pretty fun. But if you get up on Monday hoping it's Friday and that's your plan, you're not going to be very optimistic.
No, because 4 days out of the week, you're very disappointed.
Yeah. And then Friday comes and you go, is that as good as it gets? All I'm doing is going to the bar? That's not very good. So.
All right. Very good.
Hey, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you for coming. And we will have you back.
It's been fun. And I hope some of this resonates with our audience.
I hope so as well.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Good job.
It's Time is a production of the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business Graduate Programs in association with Venture Project Studios. Executive producer, Aaron J. Armstrong. Host, Professor Dale Feinauer. Creative Director, Madison Potratz. Director of Photography, Elazar Kloon. Audio and Video Editor, Elazar Kloon. Marketing Strategy, Tara Larson. Social Media, Anwar Mahana. A special thanks to L Creative, Top View Media, Michael Patton, and the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh College of Business Graduate Programs.